Okay, on today's video we're going to talk about Facebook ads and the landing pages that you need to ultimately use with Facebook ads to make your Facebook ads work, whether you're selling products or services. I'm going to tell you about what I've learned over the last 10 years or so about running Facebook ads and the type of landing pages that work for certain things versus other things. So you could walk away from this video with information about what kind of landing page you think you should use for your campaigns. And I'll just start off by saying the obvious here. Most of the time you need a landing page if you're going to make Facebook ads work, okay? The reason for that is, as opposed to something like with Google, you can't just send people onto a commercial page that has, you know, minimal or maybe even a decent amount of information on it, generally speaking, and hoping that they're going to buy, because the intent's way different. You can't compare somebody who wants the product to somebody who is just on Facebook looking for family photos and stuff and trying to convince that person who ultimately is lazy, their butt's welded to their chair, they don't want to whip out their credit card. So with that, you generally need a different approach. You're going to ease your way into a relationship with that person with the understanding that you will get them to buy, but you're not going to get them to buy all at once, basically. It has to occur in stages. Now, I don't want to say that's the hard and fast rule. Anything I say on these videos and the PPC in general, nothing will apply 100% of the time to everybody. It's all about starting with the most likely stuff, I guess, that will work, is what I try to tell you. So you don't go and just randomly start trying this and that and wasting all your money to find out what probably was going to work for you the first time. So with that, you know, and then a lot of people don't think about, well, they do when they get into it, but they don't think about what type of landing page they're going to use if they know that they're going to use a landing page. There's different types of landing pages you could use for, specifically when referring to like a Facebook campaign, about how much information is going to be offered in there, what's the angle going to be, and there's certain things that work better on Facebook in general as opposed to other places I've run display advertising like on Google Display Network that, again, specifically seem to work well on Facebook, and I've seen work well with many other clients, which I'm going to tell you on today's video what they've been doing, so you pretty much could take away that same thing for your own campaigns that you're looking to run or trying to get working here if they're not working out the best for you right now. So the landing page on Facebook ads, this is something that can entirely make or break whether you're going to make any money on Facebook ads or not. This same thing technically does apply for like any other PPC that you do on the web, online advertising, but it's particularly true on Facebook because respectively, Facebook's kind of, well, really good at finding customers for you based upon all the data that they have on their customers. It's less now moving forward because of that Facebook's losing some of the data that they were getting access to from people on Apple devices, spying on and getting access to information from the, you know, people that use Apple devices, you know, typing stuff in. That information was going to Facebook. That's why the Facebook ads were working so good in the first place. They still have some good data, but they're losing majorly their edge on Google, which now has Chrome, so that now the big money is going back to Google more so than Facebook. But not to say Facebook can't work or won't work. They still have a lot of data. And what's great about Facebook is the fact that you get this nice big ad that you can get in front of the person. That a person initially, the reason why it works is it tricks a person into not realizing it's an ad before they've read what's on there. It blends into the content so well. It's just like if you could pay the newspaper to put an article in the paper that looks like an article, which you technically could do nowadays, called sponsored posts. They start reading the article, they don't know it's an ad until halfway through. Facebook didn't really even start catching on a lot until they started doing the newsfeed ads in terms of how getting things to work and so on and so forth, because people mentally block out an ad. It's on a sidebar because they know it's an ad. Never read it. So with Facebook, you get the attention that you wouldn't get otherwise with a normal or any other banner ad, so you get them to read the content. And the idea is to get the content to look more like content, or sorry, the ad to look more like content. And with that, you send them onto a page that isn't so much about looking like a normal sales page. It looks more like a continuation of the content. And so what people will do is a lot of times offer a little bit of information, an ebook. It's very popular there. you get them to opt in, and then slowly transition into a pitch from there at some point in the future, 5, 10 emails down the road, or after you start talking to them in person, whatever. And so with that, you got to know that that in general works better to stretch out the sales process, as I found, and as you probably will see that there's a conclusion on, or consensus on, looking at a bunch of other Facebook ads, that they're not just going for the sale right away. You're going to have to decide though, are you going to go for the sale right away, which it is possible to do that. I'll explain how in a minute. It's easier to do if you're trying to stretch the process out, which is why people are using it. But even still, there's some degree of deciding how much information you're going to offer on that page. Are you going to offer bare minimum, get their email, and then do something with it afterwards? Are you going to offer them a little bit of information and then ask for their email? Are you going to offer a whole bunch of information and just go for the sale, if you will, so to say? Or just, going for the sale right away, like I talked about, like you may do just with a Google ad where they're already looking for what you sell. So what are your options with the landing page? Well, I touched on it just a minute ago. The first off, I'll say though, if you're selling something for less than $100, you could pretty much get away with just going straight for the sale, okay? Particularly a product here, because there's only so much. The less, see, here's the thing. The less you spend, the less risk it is of losing your money, because people protect it when they're going to spend more, think more about their purchase. And so if somebody spends, $40 for an item they found on Facebook, and they get ripped off, they're like, yeah, well, it's $40, okay? Versus if it's $400, they're going to be a lot more inquisitive, and you're going to have to do something entirely different than what you spent selling something that costs $40. So if it's less than 100, I would just say automatically just send them to a product page, demonstrate the product there, how you use it, what its features are, what its benefits are, offer a short Q&A, and then basically at that point in time, the algorithm eventually should match you up with somebody who's interested in that product enough to just buy it straight out, okay? If you're selling something for more than $100, then you've got a whole different amount of work to do. Obviously, the big money is in selling things that are multi-thousands of dollars, particularly because the ad cost on Facebook is going to be the same whether you sell something cheap or expensive. And so if we could sell a $4,000 item, we can make a whole, millions of dollars just as off of a Facebook campaign, or sell something for even $500. It opens up a whole new, opportunity in terms of business to us being able to figure out how to crack that code. So in order to do that, there's some basic things that you're going to have to know up front and decide on before you go forward. If you don't want to, try everything and, like I said, end up wasting a bunch of time and money on stuff that just likely wasn't going to work, and try to narrow things down as much as you can up front. So there's 3 different types of landing pages you basically can run in that situation. A short page, which basically you right away go for an email submit. A lot of people in the advertising space call it a squeeze page. So you're going to send people to a page that's pretty much all that it is. It'll be like some chick looking at a form that says submit your email address, and there'll be a headline there. And it's just a continuation of what the ad says. Want to talk to a weight loss consultant in Cincinnati will be the ad, and then you send them to a page, and then there's just a box for an email submit. And then once you enter that information, presumably you're going to get to talk to that person, but that's the first step in the process. And then you go away with that. And then the reason people do that is again, going back to what I was saying before, as you're on Facebook screwing around and you're just scrolling, ha 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 ha, that's funny. They get to the ad and you see, keep the message simple, like I just said there, something that basically that person wants like 100%. You just say, do you want da 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 da? You click on the ad, and then instead of having this person start to ask too many questions, you just make it simple and you short circuit all those questions that they would ask and just get the email. Because at least if you get that email or other contact information, you can have a million more attempts to sell to that person. You don't have to do it all at once, as opposed to having more information. If you don't get it right the first time, they leave no email, you don't get any more opportunities with them. except for, of course, you can remarket to that same person, but respectively, if they've clicked on it once, they probably aren't going to click on it again unless you, or at least the same pitch, because they're like, I've seen that already. So in terms of skill, that's it's the easiest to deliver on, because a landing page with just an email submit, you just copy somebody else's, that's already running a lot of money through their ads, and probably can get that to work. But that whole somebody looking at the form and then the submit with the big headline, that's generally the formula there. And then, that's the easiest to get working, because actually with there being less options, your conversion rate goes up. You could get your conversion rates on an email submit page 30–40%. Now, on the flip side, by the way, with that, yes, you can get 40% conversion rate, but you're shifting the problem from having to sell them up front and get them to read information, still be willing to contact you or buy, to having to do that after they've already submitted their email. That said, again, and one step further, just to state the obvious here again, if you can get enough emails, you will actually make more money selling, having to have to do more overall, let's say, to sell to them after you got your email than asking for the sale up front. And that can be the difference between making money or not. So that's why I said the landing page could be everything in terms of whether your campaign works. And you're going to have to figure out, a lot of times you won't know unless you test multiple options here. But generally speaking, there's more people making money. Therefore, you'll see more people doing it. Just getting an email submit, or they'll sell like a $7 product, which then leads into a more expensive product. I don't use that so much, because the person who usually spent $7 for a product isn't the person who spent $700. But that's your first option. Your second option is to offer like a medium length landing page, where you're going to offer a little bit more information. In the example I gave before, you talk about what the solution is. Hi, I'm a weight loss consultant in Cincinnati, and I help people lose weight by reviewing, what their diet choices are, and then, help them with an exercise program, If you want more information about what I offer, submit your email. And that will actually, get your conversion rate to go down, but the quality of the lead will go up. Okay? Now, that is almost the same as the short option. Realistically, what I would say is if you're going to go short or medium, they're kind of interchangeable. You're going to test both, and you're going to test with what you have lined up after you get the email to see what's actually going to work better. Because ultimately, if you pre-qualify them more, guess what? As it makes logical sense, once you start sending them the email, you're going to get higher open rates, you're going to higher response rates, because that email, you're deciding. You open your email and you see all these emails that you get from everybody, and then if you don't remember what you clicked on, you're just not going to read that email. So even though you get more emails, you may not get as much opportunities to sell in terms of them actually reading the email if you don't do so much pre-qualification up front. So that's something to consider, whether you go short or medium. The other option is just to go with a long landing page, where you're going to go through the gamut of trying to explain everything that you have to explain to a person in order to feel comfortable to buy something that might cost more than $100. So it can be done. It takes more skill. Why? Because you have to be able to write, you have to be a good copywriter to write the text the way that it needs to be, and it needs to be laid out so it's not confusing and engaging. And the whole kind of deal with those is as you read one thing, the goal is to get them just interested enough to read the next thing. And as they read that next thing, it's to get them just interested enough to read the next thing. Until they were at the bottom of the page, they weren't expecting to read all that, but they did. Okay, it's like a seduction. So there's lots of info on that page. Generally, then speaking, at the bottom of that page, you're going to link to a product page on your site that has a place where you can buy the product physically. Okay, so it's not going to realistically, sending people onto a regular product page on your e-commerce site from a Facebook ad, that just basically works so little that I'm not even leaving it as an option. So if you want to do that, if you want to take humans out of the process, which these emails generally, by the way, you're following up, your goal is to get them on the phone. Yes, you're asking for their email, but you want to get them on the phone. Maybe you ask for their number on the right away, email and phone number, so that you can get them on the phone right away, which there's some information you need to know about that to make it work, because it's not as easy as it sounds to get someone's phone number and have them pick up the phone right away. But if you want to just take out the human element of selling them, then it takes a lot of skill to get the page right, basically. But you have the page. You also are going to need a phone number on the page because you're expecting that you're trying to get the page to where most people's concerns of what they normally would have and need to before they buy answered in the page, and you're going to be refining that page. But there's still going to be a small percentage in the double-digit range who are still going to want to talk to somebody to feel secure about handing over $500 to you, or $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever. And you have the phone number there, and then you still have to answer the calls. But at least then, when you do have the human interaction, you may only need one person versus multiple people to service all these leads. And when they call, they're basically 1, 2, or 3 questions away from their purchase, versus you're talking to a bunch of people to get them to understand the concept with these first 2 here, and they're not really purchase ready. They're just getting more information. You're spending time on the phone to get them educated still. And so, respectively, you're going to have a lot of purchases, and then what few calls you get, they're close to a purchase already. With these first 2 options, what you do is you send them you get the email address, you send them a series of emails. You hope to get them on the phone at some point, and then while they're on the phone, you basically can convince them, get them the rest of the way to where they are able to make it and want to make a purchase. They may be close to an actual purchase at some point, based upon how the email sequence you send them is sent, which you're not going to send one email, you send them a whole series. And basically, if you're asking how many emails you send, it never ends. If they are going to read 15 emails from you, that's what they read. You can have that email sequence. If you want the most sales out of what you're doing there, you make 50 emails. You stay in touch with them for 2 years if you need to. Then after 2 years, they're finally ready. They're finally ready. But at some point, then they'll be ready, but they'll still usually at that point in time need to talk to somebody to get them the rest of the way, okay? Or, of course, in that email sequence, you can send them to a long version of the landing page, and then that could be one way to do it. But generally speaking, if you get their email, it's to focus on getting them to call at some point. As for what I've normally seen most people doing, okay? There's caveats to everything. Things to know here. So, despite what you start out testing here, if you generate phone numbers on Facebook in terms of a form, so if instead of an email submit, you see most people doing email submit. Why? Because you can go right into an email sequence, and that person generally will engage in that, okay? Versus if you ask for email and phone number, what happens is when you try to call them later, they don't pick up the phone. I've heard this over and over again, enough to where I'm going to say, in 2021, to get people on the phone after they submit an email, submit a form for an email on Facebook, as well as Google Display Network and other places too, by the way, but especially on Facebook, you might only get them on the phone 10% of the time. So yeah, you're getting an email submit and a phone number for $3 or $4, but it takes 10 of them just to get someone on the phone, which then they're not qualified that much at that point. So it takes 10 more to sell, and then now your acquisition cost is $400. It doesn't work. So that's why you normally just see the email address. That, and of course, if you do phone numbers and you're not qualifying people up front, you need a phone room. And then you have to have a training program to train people how to sell. Even if they know how to sell, you're going to have an actual scripted program for these people to sell like a machine, like you want them to. And that creates an additional layer of complexity to the things that a lot of people don't have the skills to put together. So, and I said, it's hard to get them on the phone, but parentheses here, I said, unless you have a phone room. So what I've seen that does work well, if you want to go with this option, because maybe respectively, you're going to have to make the decision up for yourself, like I said, of which one you go with here first. Most people are going with the email submit. One great thing to do here, if you do have the finances and for wherewithal to put the phone room together, you can ask for your phone number up front. You have the email sequence going on as normal, but on the phone, there's this technology out there where somebody puts in a phone number on the phone, it will automatically call your phone room, or it could actually call one particular person if you're doing this yourself, and it'll say, XYZ, Joe Smith just submitted a form. Would you like me to put you in contact with them, and it's a robot voice, and you click 1 and it'll immediately call the number that was submitted on the form, and it happens in real time, like within the next 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And then it calls them, and then they now are guaranteed to remember that they just filled that out, and you can sell to them, and you get a much higher response rate at that point in time, and it might be enough to where you can get your short landing page that just asks for the phone number up front to work, okay? You'll get more, selling opportunities that way. So you get the general idea there, and then you have these forms coming in, the calls are coming into your phone room, you're servicing them. Some people won't answer the phone still. The emails, though, will get them because everybody checks their emails eventually. Most people will at least read some of the email. If the email's written good, they'll get hooked in, and then they'll eventually start to respond to where they're willing to speak to somebody on phone, and then you eventually get them on the phone that way. So that would be more so, again, like I said, normally what would work on Facebook, that shorter landing page, and then adding in the human element, getting the phone number if you can do it, otherwise at least the email address, and then writing the email out. Now, if you go with the short form, short landing page style, that often works best on Facebook if you're good at writing long form, timed first person copies. What I mean by that is, what works the best, as I've seen many times, you get somebody's email address here, and what you do is, you email them afterwards, try to get them warmed up as a potential lead. And instead of just sending it in corporate speak, where it's like, we are the best, and our product has all these features, and our company was da-da-da-da-da, you speak as if you were the CEO or owner. And it doesn't matter if it's a big company, speak as if yourself. Hi, Joe, I'm glad you asked for information here. If it was a big company and you sell, electronic cigarettes, something like that, thank you for contacting me. I just want to let you know that, first of all, I'm the owner. I'm going to be emailing you about these e-cigarettes that we have that are healthy or whatever. I started this company because I actually personally hated the problem that, I'm looking to solve here. And then the second email sounds like it's coming from a friend, and that all the rest of the emails do that. And the example that I gave before about the Cincinnati dieting consultant, then you speak on behalf of the Cincinnati dieting consultant. So if, in that case, they're more expecting it's going to come from the consultant themselves, but you don't ever speak, you speak in the first person as if you're having a conversation directly with your friend there. Hi, I'm glad you actually contacted me about, my coaching services here. I've actually helped more than 100 different people now here in Cincinnati. Maybe you know some of them, blah, 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 blah. The first email is just about establishing a friend relationship. Think about if you meet somebody in public, you're only going to go into so much stuff with them at first to establish a relationship. You don't get into any recommendation until way later down the line. Most people's sequences is at least 7 emails in. You could send an email every day. That usually still works pretty good. That's about the right cadence if your emails are written well. They'll read the one, then the next time they see it, they'll want to read it even more, and they should be wanting to read each one more if your writing is good enough. So it should be timed. You should test that timing, but once a day. By the 7th day, at that point in time, you should be able to, if they haven't responded back saying that yes, they want to talk to you yet, then you can ask them if they're willing to talk to you. And you say, hey, Joe, is it okay if I give you a call? If that doesn't work, another option you can have, by the way, that I found that was amazing, that we tested out, was to say, hey, I really like to just explain our product here and show you what it can do. I'll send you a $20 Amazon gift card if you go through the entire sales pitch with me. You don't have to buy it. You're not pressured to, but if you do, you get on the phone with me and let me show you everything I got. We'll give you the $20 gift card just as a farewell. Thank you for at least considering us. And that will get a really high response rate to get the person on the phone when you couldn't get them otherwise, right? And then and then on top of that, because you're writing it in the first person, what will happen is is people will respond as if their friend is emailing them. So if you think about it, they feel like now the owner of the company now is friends with me as I'm writing this, and they're adding a lot of value here in terms of explaining what I need to know about what that topic, I'm interested in here. That I'm reading the email, there was something there that really got my attention, and I'm going to respond back to the email asking a question as if I'm asking that person who's been sending me the emails, that I'm asking that question to them directly, like it's a two-way conversation here. Somebody sent me a personal letter, and I'm sending them a personal letter back. And once that happens, boom, you got them to the point where now you can respond back again. But say, it would be better if I could explain this over the phone. You got them on the phone. Now you got the opportunity to sell them. Once you're on the phone, see, the whole thing is, it's hard to go ahead and with the long style landing page, do it right. Why? Because there's no back and forth exchange. You can't, when you're talking to somebody, you can't ask them like, what is your concerns? And get exactly what their concerns are, and as you explain things, you can't see what their feedback is, so you can tailor your pitch. Once you get them on the phone, you can do all that. So that's why the email is always about getting them on the phone, because a trained salesperson can get the feedback from the user and explain whether the product or service at hand here is actually going to meet the needs of the person and what their exact needs are. And it can explain why it will meet their needs to build their confidence about the product so they'll buy it. So the email is about getting them on the phone. Maybe you can get them on sooner, given the approach that I mentioned before. But you should write the emails as if you want that person to just respond back like they're your friend. And later on in the sequence, if they won't respond, at least 7 emails in, you can ask them if you can call them. And if that doesn't work, you can bribe them, like I said. No harm in doing that, but so different options there available to you. Still, the holy grail out of all of this is to automate the process. Everybody wants to automate their income. They want an e-commerce site. They don't want to do any work. They want to put up a website. The product sells. They outsource the fulfillment. I sit on a beach somewhere and I'm making money. That's very hard to do. Now, it's not impossible to do, but for somebody who's lazy to start with, that wants to not do any work, you're never going to get there. It's like, if you try too hard to make money, you'll never make it. If you just go for a good quality service, the money just comes flying in. To have a landing page that will sell a person without having to talk to them, you're going to have to do everything kind of right. 90% plus right. And in order to do that, and that's your goal to automate it, I would recommend starting out with the manual approach, because with that manual approach, you're going to learn your customer, the ins and outs, the wishes, the hopes, the dreams of that person you're trying to sell, so you can write effective copy on that landing page, which does answer 90% of people's general concerns, because you're trying to get 90% of all the questions that people potentially do ask to be answered in that copy, because that's the only way to get somebody to buy it at a high enough rate to pay for the advertising typically. So if you want to automate with a long page and you don't want to do all this phone room crap anymore, then you try to offer info. You go with the short form first, like I talked about before, where you're just asking for the email first, and then you can, if you don't want to do that technically, you want to take a shortcut to the long version of the page, what you can do is you can have an ad that says, going back to the diet consultant example, hi, I'm a Cincinnati diet consultant. I'm offering free info to the public on helping them lose weight, using products to lose weight. If you'd like free information, just enter your information here, and then you call them right away and you just talk to them. You talk to them long enough to where you learn what most people, 90% of people need. And then now you have the information to actually do a landing page that hopes to solve 90% of people's problems, so that page can do the heavy lifting that the phone person would need to do. So that you answer all the questions that the people normally would have in the copy. And so without actually being in business, it's hard to know all that stuff, okay? So it comes with kind of in time being and practicing what you do. But So that's what I would recommend there. As far as the long style landing page, I have some other videos that talk about this more. But the key to it is yes, you have all that information that would solve 90% of people's problems here on the page, but it needs to be done in a way that if, let's say, one particular thing only 1 or 2% of people ask, right? And another thing, another 1 or 2% of people ask. And then another thing, another 1 or 2% of people ask. And so if you listed all of those individual things, because your customers are very much different in why they buy, the page would get so long, and the people who don't need 90% of the content would get bored halfway through. So what do you do to remedy that? You have the page, and you get to you know, where you're talking about like results, and then if they want more information about the type of results they would get, they need to click a link that goes to another page which explains that. And then you get to another section that talks about, you know, what are the costs? And then you explain it on a brief high level, then click here if you want to know more about costs, and you keep doing that. You get down to the part that an FAQ section. You still have questions about this product? If so, read our FAQ. And then you put 2 or 3 or 4 of the top questions there and the answers, and then a link to another page that has all the FAQ questions. With the objective that once somebody goes to these other pages, that it's easy to get back to the page they were at before. So you answer just those questions, and at the bottom of that page, you link back to learn more about the product in general again. And so they're able to go in depth on just the information they want without bogging everybody else down too much to where they're going to be overwhelmed with the information you're presenting and leave because of that, because they also will leave because of that. And so that's the kind of the dance you have to have with the long version of the landing page. So you not only have to know everything about your customers, pretty much, but you also have to understand how to lay the information out so it's the most ideal for everybody, given that most people are different from one another. So it's a very hard thing to do, and you usually have to also not only know about the customer, but you got to know how to write copywriting. You got to know how to make landing page layouts. So it's, you know, respectively, for me, my recommendation always is just go the easy route, get the email submit, write a text version of the email, get that to work, and then reinvest in the long version landing page to automate. Last thing about the email, by the way, I should also mention here, you can make a graphical email to send people, but with Gmail's filters, Google don't kill me for giving away your secrets. That'll go into the promotions tab. If you write a text-only email, guess what? It goes in the primary tab. So, like I said before, you want to seem like you're their friend, just the owner of the company speaking to try to help them. You're having a conversation with them. That's the feeling that you want to get across to the other users so they respond back so you can get them on the phone. If you do it in plain text instead of images, it really does go to the primary tab and it really does seem personal. So that's just another small tip I'd give you about this whole thing if you want to go ahead and get it into Facebook advertising and or improve your campaigns and figure out how to make it work where you see other people making it work and you're not quite making it work yet. And then I guess the other thing to that is regardless of how good you do this stuff, the longer you run your Facebook campaigns, the better the ROI will get, because the machine learning that Facebook has will match you up with a better and better customer or prospect all the time, because when somebody buys, it looks through their million data points that they have and what are all the similarities that all the customers had. Which of the data points of those million did the customer have when they bought? And when somebody else buys, they do the same thing. And the more customers you get, the more correlations they can draw between all the customers. And so they eventually can weed out. They had a list of prospects for you in the beginning, but they weed down that list of prospects after each sale that you make because they cross-compare all the past customers you had, and they figure out statistically what traits your future customers probably don't have, so they can narrow down your advertising more and more all the time. And so therefore, you should go in it knowing that if I have to get a sale for $30 to be profitable, and my cost per sale is $100 per sale today, but it was $120 per sale last month, you should be thrilled, because really it's all just a matter of continuous improvement. You're eventually going to get the numbers you want. Where you start to worry is where you're plateaued for more than 3 months. And now you have to reinvent what you're doing a little bit, but you should never give up. There's always a way to improve the results further, it's just going to be harder to do. If the results are improving on their own without doing anything, you should be happy because you don't have to do anything. It's just a matter of time you're going to hit your numbers. Assuming you aren't going to run out of money first before you get there, you know, of course, which I understand why you would be frustrated then. But then again, if it was cheap to get into, your competitors or somebody else would already be doing it. And so you should understand that whatever thousands you spend up front to get there, start with a small budget, realize that small budget's not going to make money at first, and it's an investment in your future. Once it does work, it'll pay off everything that you lost in the beginning and make it look like it's absolutely nothing. And it will be, as long as you are going to think about and not give up if you don't get your results you want right away. What's the next improvement I can make? And that gets me to the next stage, and the next stage, oh, okay, and finally I hit my numbers. So anyway, that's the whole video. I have a ton of other videos on this channel about other money-making strategies, PPC strategies in particular. You should check those out if you haven't seen them already. I have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns that make money every time. Maybe you're interested in that content. If so, you should check that out. If you have any questions about anything that I discussed here today about Facebook landing pages, you can leave me a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel within a day or two. But apart from that, hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something that helps you make more money from your Facebook campaigns in the future, or get you over that threshold into profitability, where you can make a lot of money